Hello my friends, and welcome to the next installment of the Divide and Conquer version 5 faction overviews. This week, taking on the Northern Dúnedain, we will comprise this video of not just the Dúnedain, but also the factions of Arnor and the Reunited Kingdom. So to keep this video a little bit more structured than I have in the past, and to at least have on screen probably the most important details that everyone wants to know about the scripts and the bonuses that you get for the Dúnedain depending on your path, I decided we would start off talking about the choice script as well as what units you will unlock and what benefits you have first of all before I take us to the campaign map. So to start out, this is the script path, so I wanted to talk about this because it seems that there's some confusion. So this is the rundown of the script. So at turn 6, you will be told to send Aragorn to the city of Bree. Now you don't need to go all the way to the settlement itself. All you need to do for any of these sections of the script is simply enter the region that the city is in. So you can go just to the first tile of Breeland, and that will fulfill the requirements. That's all I recommend you do so you can move through the script swiftly. So after you send Aragorn to the Breeland region and wait a turn, he must then go to the Rhudaur Uplands, which is the region where Camith Bryn is. After you do that, he will not find Gollum there, but he will find Kingsfoil, which will help him with his casualty replenishment from battle. Aragorn must then return to the Breeland region to meet up with Gandalf, who he will discover is not actually there, but a letter awaits for him. That letter tells Aragorn that he must go to Imladris and reforge Narsil. After you send Aragorn to Imladris and you wait 2 turns, you will be given the choice to pursue either the Kingdom of Arnor or to form the Reunited Kingdom with Gondor and Dol Amroth. So you pick your faction there, and then you move on. The second step, this is the most important one that I think may get forgotten a lot. You must send Aragorn to Ostsul to meet with Gandalf. If you don't do this, you won't be able to complete the other quest lines. He only needs to be there for 1 turn. A flavor description text box will show up, and Gandalf will instruct Aragorn on what he should do next. He advises that you send Aragorn down to Dunharrow to recruit the King of the Dead to basically fulfill all the evidence he needs that Aragorn is the true heir of Isildur and the true King of Arnor or the Reunited Kingdom. You don't have to go to get the Oathkeepers if you are doing Arnor, but if you are going to go to the Reunited Kingdom route, you do need to do that. So once you send Aragorn to Dunharrow, which is in the King's Land region, the region of Edoras, you must wait 2 turns. Aragorn will then teleport to the other side of the White Mountains, and he will have the King of the Dead with him. Though do note, like I said, you don't need to do Step 7 to unlock Arnor. This is entirely optional, but entirely recommended because the King of the Dead will fight with you for 3 battles, and he is pretty much unkillable. Like, no army can beat him, so use him to take key settlements or destroy key armies. However you want to use them, it's up to you. If you think it's kind of cheap and cheating, then just don't use them or throw them away on some trash. Honestly, the choice is up to you. So after you've completed Step 6 for the Arnor path, you must remain allied to Bree. The Breeland faction must also maintain control of Bree the city, and then you must rebuild the House of Kings in Numenos, and you wait 2 turns after that is done, and you will assimilate the faction of Bree and take the city and the Shire and any other regions that Breeland has taken. For the Reunited Kingdom side, you must recruit the King of the Dead. You must form an alliance with Gondor and Dol Amroth. Gondor must hold Minas Tirith for this to work, and Aragorn must wait in the Pelennor Fields region of Minas Tirith for 6 turns, at which case then you will absorb all of Dol Amroth and all of Gondor. So that's the key thing. It takes a couple of turns. I think a lot of people from comments I've read in the Discord and other places, they've mentioned, hey, it's not working. You just need to wait enough time and you will have all of the script will complete. It's not bugged or anything as long as you've gone to Ostsul and then gotten the Oathkeepers and you wait for about 6 turns. So to talk about the major differences in summary here, For Arnor, you will unlock Sworn Horsemen and Infantry at the encampments. Gatekeepers can be found in the city of Bree at the Prancing Pony building. Any regions along the traditional Greenway, which expands from Tharbad to Anuminos, also which includes Bree, Matrife, and I want to say Hobbiton is part of that. I could be mistaken, but all of those regions you will be able to build Greenway units, which are the Riders and the Spearmen. You will also get the Watchmen units in all Breeland regions with the encampment building, and you get the Beacon of Hope mercenary recruitment system, which basically means if you are allied to a faction that is good and also human, you will be able to recruit mercenaries of their units. Though it's specified that you need to be allied to them, from what I've seen, it doesn't really matter. You can just send an army anywhere and you can recruit their units. So I don't know if the statement about them needing to be allied, it doesn't seem like it's true or not working. That might be a bug, but from my experience, you can just go anywhere with a general and recruit their faction's units. For the Reunited Kingdom, you will unlock level 6 smithing. This is not through an additional blacksmith, but rather at your tier 5 blacksmith, it will unlock tier 6. So it's a great boost. You just build the level 5 blacksmith, and it's as if you built the level 6 at the same time. You get complete control of Gondor and Dol Amroth. You'll unlock Gondor and Amrothian units from the encampments, which are region locked to Gondor and Dol Amroth Heartlands. Additionally, from any coastal settlements, you will unlock Haven Guard and Nimrodel Mariners from the Tier 1 and then Tier 2 ports. Coastal Wardens can be recruited from any castle that is along a coastline or a river. So think like, Callan had, the castle north of Gondor, or the castle of Dol Amroth itself. Those places will allow you to get Coastal Wardens. And finally, you will unlock the Auxiliary Recruitment Building. So in any region that is basically controlled by humans, you can build this barracks, and it will allow you to train some of their units, including elite units from the building there. So I've gone in past videos, I've shown the units that you get from Beacon of Hope and from the Auxiliary Recruitment Building, so I won't be going over those units in detail in this video, but just to give you a quick idea, like Dalian Longbowmen, for example, Haradrim Spearmen, Rohans, Aerid Skirmishers, Aerid Lancers, units like that you'll be able to get from various regions around the world. But I have a complete, in-depth look at those units in my version 5 video for the update. And that is pretty much it. So to go talk about the expanded roster, this is the final part I'll do here in the presentation format. You unlock Gondor Infantry, Gondor Spearmen, Archers, and Cavalry. You get all of the Gondor Militia, so that's the Cavalry, Militia Archers, Guardsmen, and the standard bread and butter Gondor Militia. For the elites, you unlock the Wardens of the White Tower, Citadel Guard, Fountain Guard, and the Osgiliath Veterans. Additionally, you'll have all fiefdoms units, like we said before, the Haven Guard, Mariners, Coastal Wardens, and in the Dol Amrothian regions, you will have Talon Knights, Tirith Ire Wardens, Knights of the Silver Swan, Knights of the Tirith Ire, Amrothian Squires, Seaward Lancers, and Amrothian Pikemen. So you don't get every single unit, but you get most of them. So you get at least the ones that are important enough to warrant taking. You don't get Amrothian Guardsmen, but you do get Gondor Infantry Spearmen and Territorial Guardsmen. So there'd be overlap there if you also got Seaward Spearmen. And same thing for Seaward Footmen versus Gondor Infantry or Seaward Spearmen versus Gondor Spearmen. They're the same unit basically, and you don't really need to have Amrothian Archers if you have Archer Militia and the standard Gondor Archers. So I will now take it on over to the battle map now as just the Northern Dúnedain, and I will see you guys in just a moment. And welcome to the campaign map overview for the Northern Dúnedain. So here we are on turn 2 with all of the auto expansion completed. This is how you will start your campaign. So for settlements, we'll go over those first. To be honest, there's not a lot. You have Fenestruinen over here, where Aragorn himself would normally be. Don't mind that he's out in the field. You also have Ost-Sul, where it is actually a village next to the actual tower of Amon-Sul. And to the southwest, one that I kind of always forget about because it's not that important of a settlement, you also have Matrife, a town here just south of Mingelin, just to the north of Tharbad. So that is it for your starting settlements. You do have a few military forces scattered around, including Hervigil over at this fort in the north of Ost-Sul. In Osul itself is Erefor. Both of these guys are just standard bodyguards, nothing too special about them, though Hervigil does have the leadership special ability, and I believe Erefor should also. Actually, he does not, so Erefor has no special ability. The other generals, of course, you have High King Aragorn. You all know him. If you don't know him, and you know nothing about Lord of the Rings, I'm surprised you even found this video. He is your faction leader, and he comes with an incredibly powerful bodyguard, that being the Grey Company. He used to be a mounted cavalry bodyguard. I want to say that was that before? I think that was before version 4.5. I think 4.5 is when they got switched to infantry. I could be mistaken. I've been on version 5 for so long now. Either way, they are incredibly powerful. 17 attack, 34 defense. They inspire your troops, frighten the enemy. They are relentless, so there is no stagger animation for these guys. They are always attacking, so it doesn't matter if they get surrounded. They will keep killing things over and over again. So very powerful bodyguard. He also comes with a unique special ability, Chief of the Dúnedain, with 3 uses. Basically lasts for a minute. It reduces enemy army combat effectiveness and gives your own troops extra morale and rallies your own allied or routing troops. So, very powerful ability. I wouldn't say the most powerful ability. I would say, like, defensive stance is one of my favorites. Light of Elbereth is really good. Gandalf, Flame of Udun is also a really powerful ability, but Aragorn's has a nice solid one, and reducing enemy combat effectiveness is pretty nice. And then finally, your last general, you have Halbrand himself of the Grey Company of the North. He is in Matraith, and he comes with standard leadership for your army. So an interesting general. He does come with Dúnedain Steel Bowman, so he is very, very effective, a very great general. Primarily, you'll be using Halbrand and Aragorn, and they can both, like, they're both almost one-man armies. Steel Bowman, 15 melee, 7 missile attack that is effective against armor with 20 total defense, and these guys frighten nearby enemy infantry, so they are incredibly, incredibly powerful units there. So make good use of Halbrand and make good use of Aragorn. That's pretty much it for starting characters. So talking about Rebel expansion, well, right here in the middle of your 3 settlements, you do have Kalaniak and Tyrduin. 2 settlements I highly recommend going for. At the very least, Tyrduin, there is a river crossing. Let's see if I can find it right about here, so you can control this crossing and prevent the goblins from pouring into your heartlands if you just station 1 army over here. Kalaniak is also pretty safe. It has a crossing over here into Tharbad, but no crossing onto this end with the goblins. To the northeast, you do have Camith Bryn, though I would not recommend going for this settlement. There is a few rebel troll armies, including Captain Akoth here. He should have 2 units of trolls. And somewhere in the woods here is another hiding unit of trolls. So if you're going to go for Camith Bryn, you'll definitely want to send a spy up this way and look for where the troll armies are. Sometimes the 2 rebel armies or 3 rebel armies, however many there are hiding here, will actually garrison Camith Bryn, in which case you can kind of slowly whittle it down. Though there's no initial building, so it's kind of questionable if you want to go for it or not. I'm of the opinion that you should let Angmar weaken their armies and throw themselves on Camith Bryn, and then you should go in after. But if you want to go for it, just good luck is what I'm going to say. It's a tough start because you've got Goblin Town and Angmar right next to you. Outside of that, you don't really have expansion options into Bree, but your 2 primary settlements that you're going to always want every time you play the campaign, you're going to want a Numenos and you're going to want Dead Man's Dyke. They both have pretty powerful garrisons. Dead Man's Dyke does have heavy goblin infantry, heavy goblin archers. It does have a unit of trolls in there. And did I say Barrow-wights? I think I said Barrow-wights. Yeah, there are Barrow-wights in Dead Man's Dyke. The Numenos is a bit easier. Really, it's just lumbermen, woodland hunters, and a unit of sellswords. It's an easier settlement to take, and I would recommend going for a Numenos first. Previously, in other editions, Hervigil's army was in this fort, so you could pick between Dead Man's Dyke or a Numenos, but he's been put here in Osul to be a bit more centralized with your state of power. So if you don't want to go for these settlements, you could push up north. Nokfar Aglaw can make some very solid income, though it is right on the border of Angmar. Outside of that, other expansion options do include going into northern Enedwythe here on the north side of the Gwathlo River. You can take Aragorn, Caris Nernaled. You might be able to get to Cor Willishar, though Bree and Enedwythe tend to like to go here. If you are able to get it, Buzzra Doom can make excellent money from its mines, though there is a very powerful heavy goblin army that is stationed in Buzzra Doom, which includes like heavy goblin infantry, halberds, crossbows. There should be a unit of trolls or two in this army, and I can't remember if they have like a flame wrangler, but there's a chance for that. I'm sorry, I should definitely know these things before I get there. Another settlement you can take is Undertowers, which will give you the Palantiri, which only offers you a trade bonus, but it is an okay settlement to have, and it can grow. It is not like the villages. Though do note there is a Enedwythian General Aungasan, who comes with, what is it? It's the Foresters of Haleth, or did they change the name? He's just the Clan Herald now, so he's got the standard Enedwythe bodyguard and some other units. His whole purpose really is just to show off the battle map here, so I don't know if I ever agree with him being here, but if you do want to take Undertowers, you will want to get rid of him before you build any farms, others are going to have devastation over here. Additionally, you can expand into the northwest at Oskalone and Barketta, though these settlements don't make a lot of money, especially Oskalone. Looking at the region, you have one lumberyard and one village for its resources, so it's a very poor settlement. And Barketta literally just has a single iron resource, so you can get some mines here, but you're not going to get much money. Though I would say it would be a good idea to have Barketta as kind of a northern front against Angmar's forces and a secondary castle to recruit from. So that's pretty much it for just the base northern Dúnedain. As for strategy, like I said, take a Numinos and you're going to want to basically hold your northern borders against Angmar until you can get to the point where you can push out against them. You do have excellent recruitment options in the form of Dúnedain Rangers, Dúnedain Wardens, Woodland Hunters, so in terms of archery, you are an excellent archery faction, supplemented by excellent late-game heavy units. So make use of your archers in the early game because in general, your recruitment capabilities are going to be limited by low replenishment times of the Dúnedain units and subpar quality in the Breland militia, and I'll get more into the units momentarily. The wild card of the Dúnedain faction is the Dwarves of Ered Luin, who have like a 50-50 chance of either going evil or staying supportive, though in my anecdotal experiences, I tend to see Ered Luin going evil most of the time, so there might be like a script that checks which faction the human is, and then assigns Ered Luin based off that, but it seems like most of the time they tend to go evil, but that might be different in your guys' campaigns. Keep an eye out, they might be an issue in your campaign depending on how you play it. Aside of that, other early game strategy, a popular idea that is brought on by many users in the community is to rush the Misty Mountains to help basically Imladris out and also not have to worry about anything on your eastern flanks because the goblins can send plenty of units your ways. In terms of military quality, you vastly outmatch the goblins. Aragorn himself and his bodyguard can slaughter thousands of goblins. You usually get 500 to 600 per battle depending on how you use him, but he will do tons of damage to the goblins while your archers pepper them from afar. And ideally you get some Dúnedain cavalry to run into the goblin archer line. So if you can rush the goblins, I would try to get Brunos and Anon and Arad secured and Zog Kala. That way Imladris can basically not have to worry about the goblins here. If you are able to take Khazad-dûm west and gift it to the dwarves of Khazad-dûm, you'll be in a very solid state where then typically the dwarves will move southwards to fight Dunland for you. You can also, if you take Goblin Town, you don't need to worry about any goblins up here, and it also alleviates the Anduin Vale so they don't have to worry about goblins on their west hand side. As for final strategy, it would be advisable to take Tharbad also so that you can control Dunland and stop them from pouring into your lands. This is a very important defensible position to take. And if you can get Aragorn, that's great too. Enedwythe, you can either ally them or go to war with them. I would recommend trying to ally with them so you have an extra faction to help you fight Dunland with. And from my personal preferences, I don't like to fight Enedwythe because they have all of those like javelin men, and yeah, they can be quite bloody. So I like to ally with Enedwythe when I can, though typically Enedwythe tries to go with war with Gondor and such, so it might not be the best You might not be on good terms with Gondor, and it might be harder for you to get an alliance with them for the Reunited Kingdom script if they're at war with Enedwaith and you're allied to Enedwaith. So just keep that in mind as how you make your choices. Outside of that, once you've taken like the goblins out or eliminated any of your threats like Angmar, the campaign becomes substantially easier. Definitely worth it to try to take the goblins out and secure this area so you're not worrying about goblin raids coming westwards. Though every battle the goblins send you is an easy battle for the most part, and you do get money for winning battles, so you can farm some respectable income from them. So I'll now go ahead and load up both a Reunited Kingdom save and an Arnor save just to give a quick overview of the settlements and everything, and then we'll move on to the battle map. So here we are with an Arnor loaded save. This is turn 20, so of course this is definitely cheated because I have created the House of Kings pretty much instantaneously. And since we're going to talk about the House of Kings, I'll talk about construction here on the Arnor side. So first of all, the House of Kings has received a substantial buff. In version 5, you get global free upkeep and global law bonuses for building the House of Kings, which will help you as you expand your empire and to give you extra free upkeep, so it helps you with your economy and corruption issues. This is for both routes, so Reunited Kingdom or as the Arnor route, you're gonna want the House of Kings here because it just helps you out and gives you the Sons of Numenor. So taking over as Arnor, you get Mitchell Delving, Hobbiton, Longbottom, and Bree, and should the Freelanders take any other settlements, you'll get those also. So if they took Cor Willishar, Karas Nernaled, I would also have control of those regions. If they had Menglin, you would have Menglin as well. And before I forget about Menglin, we might as well talk about it now. The script with Menglin involves that every time you fight a Barrow-Wight general at Menglin and you occupy it, an additional 50 people will move into the village to help you grow it that much quicker, because it takes absolute ages to restore the Barrow Downs and to upgrade the village. But now it is a bit easier, and you're actually rewarded for fighting the Barrow-Wight armies that will continually spawn like every couple of turns in the region. Additionally, once you do complete the script and rebuild the Barrow Downs, you unlock Dúnedain Steelbowmen in this village. So it becomes quite a niche area, I would say. A fun place if you're willing to invest in fighting the Barrow-Wights, and it adds a bit of theme there, does it not? So now we'll go ahead and talk about the other generals. So of course you get Councilman Andy, Councilmaster Barlaman with the Gatekeepers. You'll have all of the Hobbit generals in the units that Breland has. You'll have Alf, Bilbo Baggins, and Paladin, as well as, he should be right down here, Will, who was it? Will Whitfoot was his name. That is who he is. And I forget exactly who Will Whitfoot is, but I think he was one of the mayors of the Shire, or one of the Thanes. Someone told me in my Breland overview, and I'm completely blanking on who exactly he was. I just remember Will Whitfoot, so that's who he is. You'll get all of those regions. And as for construction, like pretty much all factions now, there are very few restrictions. You go up to Tier 3 Siege, being a Dúnedain faction, so of course you get the Trebuchet. You'll have Tier 5 Armor, and like we talked about, you get Tier 6 if you join the Reunited Kingdom. The ports, you can get up to the Dockyard, and Sea Trade, you can get up to the Docklands. The Marketplace goes all the way to Tier 5 at the Merchant's Quarter. You are able to build great roads because you are a Dúnedain faction. Food production and all that goes up all the way. I believe every faction can get up to irrigation, but I might be mistaken there. As for guilds, you do get 3 of them. The Warriors Guild, which will unlock you Arthedain Knights. The Archers Guild, which will get you Sworn Infantry and Dúnedain Steelbowmen. And the Master Horsebreeders Guild, which just gives you Sworn Horsemen. But of course, all of these guilds will retrain their respective unit archetypes a bit faster in a region with these guilds. Additionally, for entertainment, you just go up to the inn, which is Tier 2. Do note the solid income there of 120 per turn. And that's pretty much it. You do get banks since you have no other restrictions. I talked about it earlier on for the special units that you get, but just to reiterate again, you do get the Greenway Riders and the Greenway Spearmen on the regions with the Greenway, so that would be Bree, Numenos, Hobbiton, Menglin, Matraith, and Tharbad. That's as far as it goes there. From Bree itself, you do unlock Gatekeepers, so you can recruit them. And then from your encampments, I'll just show them on here for your recruitment. So both sides, you'll get Arthedain Knights and Royal Guard, all the Arthedain Footmen, Wardens, Scouts, and Cavalry, the Rangers and the Blade Master and the Armsmen. From Bree, you'll get the Watchman Axe Guard and the Sword Guard and the Bow Guard. And we'll go into all of the other units in depth shortly here. So that's pretty much it for the Arnor side. For both sides of the factions, you will unlock Gandalf at turn 40 after doing the Osul event. Though in the case that Aragorn dies, you don't need to worry about that. You will still get Gandalf anyways. So I'll go ahead and show the Reunited Kingdom path, and then we'll go on to the battle map. And here we are as the Reunited Kingdom. So you can see on the map, anything that was owned by Dol Amroth or Gondor is now in your faction. Any of the generals that were alive, such as Boromir, Faramir, and Denethor, will also join your faction. To be minded of the King of the Dead here, Orodreth of Pelargir, Dúnedain, all these random captains, yada yada yada. So any general that is still alive will join your faction, along with any of the unique bodyguards that they may have. So if I go to Boromir here, he does have the Osgiliath veterans, Faramir has his rangers, and all of the fiefdom units, of course, have their own respective bodyguards as well. So just to reiterate onto the recruitment side of things, from the Tower of Ecthelion, you do get the Sons of Numenor, and then any place that has the ports, you will be able to trade Haven Guard and Nimrodel Mariners. From the encampments, as we talked about earlier, you do get all of the standard units, the Steel Bowmen, Blade Masters, Armsmen, and Cavalry available anywhere. But Gondor Cavalry, Cavalry Militia, Territorial Guardsmen, Spearmen, Infantry, Wardens of the White Tower, Citadel Guard, all the same units that I talked about earlier. You'll be able to get those in their respective regions. And I'll also show the Blacksmith here. So if I go here to Blacksmith and go to Tier 5, you'll see now it adds the Numenorian plates. That's what I was saying earlier. You built the Tier 5 Blacksmith and you do get the Tier 6 armor if you are as the Reunited Kingdom. And I have one settlement here where I can definitely show this. The Auxiliary Guard Post, so in Calenhad, Aerling Axemen, and Aerling Skirmishers. And if you upgrade the Guard Post to the 2nd level, you also get Rittermark Axemen and Riders of the Fold. So any region that is predominantly with human units that isn't Gondor or Dol Amroth, or back in your homelands, you will be able to build the Auxiliary Barracks and unlock units there. That doesn't include Bree, so you can get one in Matraith, if I'm not mistaken. You can get like the Journeyman and the Farmhand Pikeman. If I check the 2nd level, I don't believe you get too much fancy stuff. You do get Merchant Infantry and the Watchman Axe Guard, but you do need to build the infrastructure for that. Do note that you will lose some of the mercenary recruitment, so while you can still get Breland mercenary units, you won't be able to pick up like mercenary units in Rohan through the standard Beacon of Hope system. So you are restricted there. And since they have it, looks like you don't get anything in these regions here. I think you need to go farther south into Harad and Khan to be able to actually build anything there with the auxiliary units. But that's pretty much it. Let me just double check to make sure I didn't forget any features of the campaign. I don't believe I did. Of course, you can get the Hobbit allies here, and you can get Gandalf, and we talked about the Barrow Downs. So yeah, that is pretty much it. So I'm now going to just take it over to the battle map, and we'll go over the core roster. I'm not going to do any of the like Gondor, Dol Amroth units, or the Breland units, since we've already covered all of them. We haven't covered the Gondor units, but we'll cover them soon in the future video when it's Gondor's time, which should be pretty soon, actually. They might even be after the Dúnedain, but I have to double check the faction list. I guess we'd have the Dwarves next, or did I do Dwarves by... I'm doing Erebor and Ered Luin next, so it would be Gondor after them. So it'll be a few weeks till we get to Gondor. But until then, I will now take it over to the battle map. And here we are on the battle map, and I remember that the next faction is actually Dunland. How could I have forgotten Dúnedain, and then Dunland, and then we go from there. So I put Dunland as the enemy in the field battle today. So we're going to go, this is just the standard roster for the Dúnedain, so none of the special Arnorian units that you get from Bree, and none of the units that you'll get from Gondor or Dol Amroth, because those have already been covered or will be covered in the future. So I included the Lumbermen here, starting out with the infantry, just because they're as much a part of the Dúnedain roster as they are the Breland roster. These are pretty much your trash infantry, though they do have their own niches. 200 men in the unit with 5 attack, that is armor piercing, and a 7 charge is very powerful, though they have terrible morale and they have absolutely no defense. So don't use them in your front line, don't let them get shot by enemy archers, and send them after heavy armor that you're fighting, such as like Angmar infantry or bodyguards. And if they can get a flanking charge, they will do very well, but in a head-on-head fight, they will just get cut to pieces. So kind of a glass cannon shock unit. It is definitely, in my opinion, like, I think the lumber camp needs some things added to the building, because I personally don't believe it's worth it to build a lumber camp, because the only additional bonus you get is the ability to recruit lumbermen from the first tier, which is the woodland camp. So I think that building needs something. I don't usually go for lumbermen unless it's like I'm just swimming in money and I decide I want a little more armor piercing, but I'd rather get my armor piercing from another unit we'll talk about later in the roster. So going on into your standard rank and file infantry, first of all, the Hide Anywhere classic Dúnedain Wardens. These guys have 7 attack, 6 charge is very solid, great morale. This is your early, like, this is your basic, like, tier 1 really, or tier 2 I guess you could say. Like, the first tier of your barracks will allow you to get these guys, and they're really effective. They have a shield wall, they can hide anywhere, of course they're great against all types of mounts, and 17 total defense. They are great at holding the line, and that shield wall offers them the extra utility they need to either withstand and take a charge even better, or instead to simply just push into an enemy infantry block, because it gives them additional mass. So an excellent unit. Next to them, I've input the Arthedain Footmen, a 6 attack, 16 defense, mace and shield unit. So most of their defense is going to come from armor, with a little bit into defense skill and less into their shield value, but they do fill a great role in that they can be effective frontline infantry, and they can fight up against other enemy heavy infantry fairly respectably in hand-to-hand combat. And should you have to worry about any cavalry, they also come equipped with the shield wall ability, which, like I said, helps you push into settlements, helps you take cavalry charges, and limits the area of the unit so that it's actually a little bit harder for them to get shot. Though I'm not really sure what's better. To be honest, I'd love to test like effectiveness between thin spaghetti line and like just loose formation. I have a feeling that thin spaghetti line is the best, but someone else may have a better thought than me on that matter. So anyway, a great unit. They are not terribly effective, and you will see that their stats let them down against higher tier units, but they can be very solid and they are readily available. So at the next tier, with your tier 2 encampment, first off, the Dúnedain Armsmen. Pretty much a straight upgrade to the Footmen, but minus the armor piercing. They have 9 attack, 20 defense. This is where you see the morale really shines with the Dúnedain roster. Their morale is already very good. These guys are excellent infantry units. Again, they also have the shield wall formation, so they can be effective for the reasons I listed before. And throwing them into combat, there's not a whole lot of your enemies that have something that can go toe-to-toe with the Armsmen, at least until the late game. Like Angmar, out of all the armies you'll be fighting, only Angmar and like Dunland can really stand toe-to-toe with the Dúnedain Armsmen, but then you still exceed them with other better infantry and with your cavalry and ranged options. So solid, very solid, respectable frontline sword and shield unit, and I'm a big fan of them. These units do get visual armor upgrades. I can go ahead and show those after we go through all the units here, because this took all 20 unit slots to show on the field here. Next to them, we have the Dúnedain Blade Masters, who have been, I would say, significantly buffed, and that was definitely on my end because I requested it, and I thought they need to be quite a bit better than the Angmar equivalent. So, Dúnedain Blade Masters, a 15 attack, 7 charge, with 19 total defense. Like, that's almost the same as the Armsmen. They just have 1 less total defense skill, and that's just a combination of the shield value that they don't have. But 15 attack is really powerful. Again, same morale as the Dúnedain Armsmen. And yeah, they're just an excellent unit. I really love them in the current version. I feel like they're at a very balanced state for what they should be. I mean, they're Dúnedain Blade Masters. These guys should be strong. They have a weakness to archers, and they ideally shouldn't be taking any cavalry charges, but they are very potent otherwise. So I highly recommend getting both of these units when you can, and they will make for a very formidable front line and a very strong infantry force. Now going into what I have dubbed the Tier 3 section, though their stats may definitely put them above that, including one of the units here. I have first included the Sons of Numenor. So these guys are only going to be available in Anuminos and in Minas Tirith, but they are a pike unit with 11 total attack and 28 total defense. Sorry, not pike, but they're halberd units. They do have the shield wall, good against armor because they're halberds. They have excellent morale. These guys will fight to the death. They do not run, and they just look absolutely beautiful. They are expensive to field, but they are incredibly durable on the battlefield, and they will not let you down. Just make sure they're not going to get shot by artillery or by crossbows, and be wary of Anadwyth and their javelins, because those javelins can really do a number to the Sons of Numenor. Keep them away from those threats, and these guys will pretty much beat any unit that they have to go toe-to-toe against. So, I wouldn't say not every unit. Obviously, if you're fighting, like, Ered Luin super uber elite pikemen that they get from Buzzradoom, I don't know who wins that fight. I want to give that one to Ered Luin. But outside of that, Sons of Numenor are quite a powerful unit. One-on-one against what you'll traditionally be fighting. They'll beat trolls, they'll beat snow trolls, they'll beat anything that Angmar has in the infantry department, they'll beat Barrow-wights, they'll beat any of the Dunland infantry, so they are quite powerful. Next to them, I included them here, the Tharbad Royal Guard, only available in Tharbad. These guys are a pike unit with 6 attack and 17 total defense. There are pike units that are better than them. For example, Dunland's Wolfguard pikemen. Are they Wolfguard pikemen, or are they like Orthanc pikemen? Whatever they are, I think they're Wolfguards. I believe those are 8 attacks, so they'll actually beat the Tharbad Royal Guard. But for a pike unit, these are still excellent stats, and all you need is Tharbad, which you will tend to have anyways in your Dúnedain campaign. You do need to rebuild the bridge to get these guys, but they are incredible. They are incredible at defensive strategies and just doing what pikes do best, which is killing and holding a line in your battle, like, very, very steady. So, great unit to have. Probably there's an argument to be made that they should be stronger than they currently are, and I've seen feedback from the community about that, so we'll see how it goes into the future. They might be receiving a buff. I think that they probably do, because they're so restricted, but they do fit very well in the roster as a whole, and the rest of the Dúnedain roster can cover their weaknesses, which are, again, like javelins, crossbows, and artillery. And finally, I would put these guys actually at tier 4. They are nowhere near in the same tier as the Royal Guard, and I'd even put them above the Sons of Numenor. These are the Arthedain Knights, an incredibly powerful and visually beautiful unit. You have to love the work here, because I love the work here, so my opinion matters the most, right? They have 12 attack and 30 defense. They frighten enemy infantry, and they inspire your troops. These men do not rout. They will fight to the death, and would you look at that shield wall? Not like they even need it. These guys are so incredibly defensive that Cavalry's going to have a hard time fighting them head on, but they do have that option as well, though shield wall would make them absolutely weak to ballista fire and catapult fire. So outside of that, these guys are absolute lawnmowers when it comes to the infantry department. They will get tons of kills. They will not die easily unless some very powerful armor-piercing units engage them, and they're just absolutely incredible to have. You'll be able to get these guys, I believe, almost anywhere as long as you have the tier 3 barracks. It doesn't require an Arthedain region, though, but outside of that, that's a lot of regions. That's like a Numinos, Tharbad, Barketa, like a lot of regions you can get Arthedain Knights from. And finally, in the infantry department, the final unit, which I talked about earlier, Aragorn's Bodyguard, the Grey Company, and they have a absolutely stunning visual upgrade that I'll show later on in the overview. These guys, like I said, 16 attack, 34 defense. They do all the good stuff that you want them to do. Frighten, inspire. They cannot be staggered. That is the biggest thing about these units. So if they're surrounded by Snaga, they will cut through those Snaga. They don't care. They have no stun lock animation. These guys are always on the attack, which makes them really, really effective, and they are incredibly defensive. Like, they are hard to kill. They have an 8 shield value, which actually protects them against all sorts of missile fire, like, very, very effectively. Even though some of these guys aren't even holding shields. Like, this chap is holding a small, like, dagger, small scimitar, small curved blade. I don't even know if you'd classify that as a short sword. It's more like a long dagger, I guess. But yeah, incredible bodyguard. They're not as strong as the Great Company used to be when they were a horse archer and Aragorn could solo armies, but they are still, regardless, an incredibly powerful unit, and you will want to make great use of them. That's it for the infantry department. We'll talk about the archers, starting off with the woodland hunters. Again, I talked about these guys in the Breland overview, but there's much of a Dúnedain unit that I wanted to include them here. And I know that if I didn't, someone would mention in the comments, hey, what about the woodland hunters? Which I appreciate when you guys do say that, because I've forgotten about units before, which is embarrassing, like the whole Barotheal Rangers incident that I forgot about. Anyway, woodland hunters, a very effective archer unit. Poor morale response, and very low defense, but they come with high accuracy, decent range, and 5 missile attack. On top of that, these guys have a very low upkeep. I want to say, if I'm remembering correctly, it's like 135 to 150 a turn to have these guys. So you're going to want to recruit a woodland hunter every time you can, because they are very, very economic, and they will pay dividends in your military economy. Like, they will get lots of kills, and they are very cheap to field, and should they die, it's not a big loss because they were so cheap to recruit anyway. But ideally, you do want to keep them away from counterfire because they can't take casualties quickly. Onto your proper archers, we'll start here with the Sworn Infantry. These guys are a 6-5 in terms of melee and missile, with 15 total defense. Of that, they have a 4 shield value, high accuracy, and 190 meter range with 30 missiles, right? Yeah, 30. So a decent archer unit, good for rank and file, and they even make for solid, respectable frontline infantry. So if you want to have an army that's infantry line is actually just made of these guys, they make for excellent hybrid units. So they can function well in the melee role, and they can function well from the range role, which is something that you see it in high tier archers, but for a unit to be called infantry and for it to have respectable stats on both ends, like, I kind of like it. So you'll definitely want to have quite a few of these guys. They're available anywhere. That shield value keeps them basically staying alive in other archer fights, and they trade very well against them. Next to the Sworn Infantry, we have the Cardalon Sentinels to show a quick stat upgrade. They have less accuracy, less range, and less missile damage, or the same missile damage, but they have 3 more melee attack, and they also come with better defensive abilities. So Cardalon Sentinels are going to only be available in Arnor regions and the Cardalon regions, but they are quite effective at the role. Good in melee with that 9 attack, so they're even better if you need a archer unit to be in your front line. And they look very, very well done. You have to admit, the models on these guys, absolutely beautiful. I love the colors you see on the backs with the red and the green, the stars on their shields, and the white tree. I think that they just look absolutely beautiful. So a solid unit. These guys kind of have some overlap, but there are some differences between them. Sentinels make for better melee, and Sworn Infantry make for better archers. Lastly, here for the, I guess this is the tier 2 archers, the Dúnedain Rangers, a standard bread and butter staple is what I wanted to say, of the Northern Dúnedain. And I want to recruit a lot of these guys. They have 7 melee, 7 missile attack, 12 defense, very high accuracy, 220 meter range with 32 missiles. They also have a slight movement speed bonus, and they inspire your nearby troops. Keep them at max range, keep them from being shot by enemy archers, and the other nice thing about Dúnedain Rangers is they have very low upkeep, so you're going to be always wanting to have Dúnedain Rangers in your armies. A favorite tactic of mine is to use them as a forward skirmish force, force the enemy to come to you, retreat with these guys, and pretty much just shoot and scoot. Shoot and scoot with the Rangers and stay out of the enemy's archer range. And with good micro and keep them at a safe distance, they will get plenty of kills. Oftentimes, they might even be the unit that gets you the most kills outside of a cavalry unit. So going on into the last tier of the archers, we have, first of all, we'll talk about the steel bowmen. These guys are 89 men per battalion. They are your dedicated stake deploying infantry unit, so if you want stakes, get steel bowmen. They have steel bows, so they have armor piercing on their arrows, 20 total defense, 24 missiles with high accuracy and 190 meter range, so very, very effective. They are great at picking up key enemy targets, so should you see, like, if you're fighting Dúnedain, for example, and they have Orc Avengers, you're going to want to shoot them with Dúnedain Steel Bowmen. You see enemy generals, enemy heavy cavalry, enemy heavy infantry, shoot them with the Steel Bowmen, and the Steel Bowmen will just get tons of kills. It's like having a crossbow without the downsides of having a crossbow, being the long reload time and the fact that they have to remain stationary for so long while they're reloading. So a fantastic unit, very limited in availability, but very, very powerful. You can get an army with a couple of these guys, you're going to be very strong indeed. And then lastly, the Dúnedain Bodyguard. You get a 42-man unit with one more missile attack than the Steel Bowman, but one less defense. 7 melee attack, which is armor piercing because they use great axes, and they have steel bows also, so they are armor piercing both in the melee department and in the range department. So an interesting bodyguard. Their biggest weakness comes to getting charged. They do not take charges well at all from any cavalry unit. We'll want to protect them with some form of a spear unit. But they do get a bonus against wargs, but if they take a warg charge, these guys are as good as dead. So keep them away from cavalry that's going to charge at them, and they'll do excellent for you. Being that they are a two-handed unit, they do suffer in melee from slower animations, and they don't make for the best standard bodyguard. There are definitely other better bodyguards in the game, I would say. But due to the fact that they do have armor piercing on their bows with very good accuracy and a lot of missiles, they do fill a niche role as a kind of pseudo steel bowman unit, though a bit squishier. Just keep that in mind with them. They're not going to be like a dwarven bodyguard, which you can just chuck in your front line and forget about it. You do want to pay attention because your generals can be killed quite easily if the enemy is able to get onto your bodyguards. So that's it for the archer department. And we'll go into the cavalry now. So for your kind of tier 1 cavalry, first of all, the Dúnedain scouts. These guys are 5 melee, 5 missile, 5 charge with 7 defense. High accuracy, though only 120 meter range because they are horse archers. These guys are great at chasing down routing troops and skirmishing with your enemy before they reach your battle lines. Though do keep in mind they are quite squishy when it comes to melee, and you don't want to let them get into combat with wargs because they will just pretty much lose outright. But being that they are horse archers, they are very, very powerful in this game. They also have the Cantabrian Circle, so they can fire and run in a circle and be resistant to arrows, so that makes them quite powerful. Next up, the Sworn Horsemen. Just like the Sworn Infantry, you get Sworn Horsemen. They have 5 attack with 8 charge and a 4 to their secondary attack where they switch to a sword. Good morale, a very nice charge, and 16 total defense. Pretty much just use these guys as you would any kind of medium cavalry with a spear. They do good at charging into enemy archers. They do good at hammer and anvil tactics. Though they don't have a bonus against any cavalry, so they don't do that well. They're kind of just an average cavalry unit. Not incredibly heavy, but they are available anywhere. Next to them, we have the step up, which would be the Cardalon Riders. Or I guess the step up, they're roughly the same. Cardalon Riders come with 6 attack and a 7 charge. Though they do step down to 14 total defense and no other bonus against infantry or against cavalry. They do lose the shield, but that does give them the additional attack. Though they kind of lose it in the charge bonus, so Cardalon Riders, kind of an interesting unit. I would say you're better off with Sworn Horsemen because they have shields versus the Cardalon Riders, but it does give you a little extra flavor. And it's a little, I guess it's kind of cool that you have a unit that just has a spear, but I'd rather see these guys at least have like a bonus against cavalry, which they probably at least should have to differentiate them a little bit more. That's been a common complaint that I've read, is that the Cardinal units and Sworn units are a little bit too similar, and that's something that I definitely agree with. Now on the tier 2 for Cavalry, we have the Dúnedain Cavalry. So like the Dúnedain Armsmen and the Blades Masters, they fit that tier. 8 attack, 10 charge, 7 on their secondary with their sword, and 20 total defense. No specific bonuses against Cavalry, but they are just quite powerful in melee. They are durable in melee, and they make excellent shot cav. They can also function as melee cavalry. So a good all-around cavalry unit that you can rely on. I definitely recommend recruiting these guys whenever you can, just to help you deal with like goblin archers and all that fun stuff. Finally, for your last cavalry unit, and these are more of an uber cavalry than anything else, the Arthedain Royal Guard, one of the strongest cavalry units in the mod. They come at 10 attack, 12 defense with 9 on their secondary, and 30 total defense. They frighten enemy infantry and they spy your own troops. These guys, incredibly powerful. They're like the Arthedain Knights. In fact, they're literally Arthedain Knights, but on horses. So quite a powerful unit. They will be the bodyguard for Gandalf when he resurrects as Gandalf the White, which makes for an incredibly overpowered bodyguard. But yeah, they are expensive to field, but you'll definitely want to recruit them when you can. They make for an just amazing cavalry unit. I love these guys. I love the damage that they can do. They are so freaking powerful. Like I can't think of a situation where you wouldn't want to have Royal Guard unless you're fighting like a whole army of pikes. In that case, you probably don't want to have cavalry at all. In that case, you probably don't even want to fight that army at all, because pikes are ridiculous. But that is it for your roster. So as you can see, it's very well balanced with plenty of elite units and plenty of not just specialized units, but also balanced units that can function in a variety of roles. You don't necessarily have a weakness as the Northern Dúnedain for your rosters, though do note there is a complete lack of throwing weapons. You don't have any javelins or throwing axes that you can field from your standard roster, so you do have a weakness there. And there is somewhat else of a weakness when it comes to armor piercing, as your only options in melee would be the Arthedain Footmen, the Lumbermen, and the Sons of Numenor. But you do make up for that by having ranged armor piercing in the form of the Steel Bowmen and the Dúnedain Bodyguards, and you also get the Trebuchet. That thing is incredibly armor piercing. So I'll just go ahead and load up a battle showing the upgraded visuals, and then we'll basically conclude the overview. And here we are on the battle map with the upgraded visuals. So pretty much these are all the units that get visual upgrades. So the Sworn units, the Dúnedain units, and the bodyguards, of course. So they all kind of adopt this similar style that you'll see here on the Dúnedain Cavalry, where they very much look like the Arthedain Knights, just slightly lighter, though still incredibly powerful looking. There's the Dúnedain Cavalry. The Grey Company look absolutely badass, I have to admit. I love the shields on these guys. You only get this armor upgrade with the Reunited Kingdom, because this requires tier 6, but it makes them just look incredibly amazing. You have to love the armor on those guys. The Blade Masters also adopting this very Arnorian themed, kind of Gondor mixed, heavy plate armor that they pick with the White Tree. The Sworn Infantry are a bit lighter. They instead just have like the breastplates that are added on to their units and the helmets. Looking at the Tharbad Royal Guard, they also adopt a bit of a visual upgrade as well. Dúnedain Bodyguards pick up the helmets and the chest pieces. The Sons of Numenor don't get an armor upgrade, but it does show that the style is very similar. The Steel Bowmen also pick up the full plate mail and helmets. Dúnedain Armsmen looking absolutely beautiful here with their models also, and they pretty much kind of look like slightly lighter version of the Arthedain Knights. It's kind of hard to tell the difference at first glance. The Arthedain Knights have like plumed helmets, I guess, some gold trimmings on them, and different shields, and I think the helmets are about the same, but the whole roster becomes very uniform, as you can see. You adopt a very professional and heavily armored look. So if you get to this stage of the game, you can have very professional looking armies, and I just have to admit, like, it looks beautiful. Late game, Dúnedain look absolutely fantastic, and it's just, I love the work that has gone into them, and version 5 is definitely, I mean, primarily the reason, like the biggest feature of version 5 is that it is the Dúnedain, Reunited Kingdom, and Arnor, like, version of the game. It's where we finally got the Reunited Kingdom. Years of Divide and Conquer, like, in the making, and it was heavily requested for a long time that the Reunited Kingdom joins the mod, and for years people wanted it. There were sub-mods for it. The other Third Age mods had it, like, I mean, I think even original Third Age 3 had Reunited Kingdom. But finally, Divide and Conquer in version 5 has picked up the mantle and has decided to include its own version of the Reunited Kingdom. And I gotta say, I think this is by far my most favorite rendition of it. The units look stunning. I love the way it's implemented, and I'm just glad it's finally here, because they're a fan favorite faction, and you have two ways to play them now. Do you want to have a localized campaign where you just stick to Arnor, or do you want to have a campaign where you go and take over Gondor and take over Dol Amroth and fight a split realm in two different regions and basically take on all the bad guys by yourself? It's an incredibly rewarding campaign and an incredibly fun one, and you just get some amazing units to play around with and some visually amazing units to use in battle. And now, like, we see how good the new Dunland units are. Like, we're gonna get into their overview soon, but it definitely makes you think some of the factions could definitely use a touch-up. My biggest gripe is how poor Rohan has aged, so, and Dale too, but like I've said before, Dale has some very, I can't say much, but Dale has some very nice stuff that you guys can look forward to in the future. So I can't wait for that to be publicly unveiled. It's looking amazing, but that'll be a topic of a future content video. For now, again, as I say, I hope you guys are enjoying the mod. I hope you guys are enjoying playing as the Dúnedain and the Reunited Kingdom. And until our next video, my friends, farewell.